Nearly every town you visit, you will find a Dunkin. After all, as the phrase goes, America runs on Dunkin. However, should America run on Dunkin? How ethical is it really? You will see that while Dunkin is part of the second wave of coffee as a commodity and fails to disclose many aspects of its practices, it performs well in comparison to its competitors and shows a strong concern for ethics, worker rights, sustainability, and corporate responsibility. Perhaps one of the better coffees I have tried, my go-to is the Dunkin' Original Blend, which is made from 100% Arabica beans. I prefer the coffee cold. However, when it is hot, it's quite bitter with a pungent, almost sour aftertaste. I would consider it to have a lingering taste, akin to Folgers and other quick and easy coffees. When I drink it cold, though, I add almond milk and caramel, and the edge of the coffee is really taken off, and it becomes much smoother. In post-war America, coffee has become a societal staple of industry and routine. Through this culture of coffee, I was introduced to this drink and how to dress it. Ever since getting it after class that one day, I've enjoyed it. Coffee is a beverage of revolution. The early coffee houses were a place where intellectuals, politicians, and writers could all seek refuge and converse over a warm beverage with stimulating effects. Dunkin' specifically has also become ubiquitous with American coffee culture and history. Its now widely known slogan, America Runs on Dunkin', highlights this company's position in American coffee culture. At the turn of the century, and during the Second World War, when industrialization ramped up, the idea of a coffee break was introduced. This break allowed workers a short 15-minute time period to recuperate and drink coffee, which, as we know it, is a stimulant that would let them keep working longer, more efficiently, and with more energy. Post-war, the coffee break remained as more jobs moved away from manufacturing and the service industry. The hustle and bustle of the modern workplace has sped up the pace of everybody's lives, giving little time to slow down. Coffee has become essential to keeping up this quick, almost disconnected pace, with many unable to function without the stimulation from that drink provides. Dunkin', with its model of fast food and drive-thrus, allows a quick way to get a coffee without ever having to leave the comfort of your car. Dunkin' is not a company to share the exact regions where its coffee is grown. The most specific they will get is the countries. These countries, where they source their coffee from, are Honduras, Guatemala, Brazil, and Colombia. But Dunkin' does have programs that support local farming families in Santa Barbara and Comayagua, Honduras, so it can be assumed that Dunkin' has some farms in that region. After the coffee is inspected at the farms and at an American port of entry, it is roasted in one of many roasting facilities across the United States. Through the process of roasting, Dunkin's Arabica beans transitioned from a green to a brown, while the natural sugars caramelize and sweeten the coffee. From a utilitarian viewpoint, I would consider the coffee to be ethically sourced. Dunkin' employs various programs that benefit and keep money in the local communities. Additionally, Dunkin's parent company employs various initiatives and conducts periodical audits of the supply chain to ensure an ethical sourcing of labor. However, that's not to say the industry doesn't face its own issues. The U.S. Labor Bureau estimates that 150,000 children are involved in child labor in Honduras. These statistics are for the entire Honduran market, though largely agrarian, and not just the coffee industry or Dunkin' itself. In comparison to its large competitors, Dunkin' likely outperforms. Its main competitor, Starbucks, has been known to participate in union busting, and one investigation found that children were working in excess of 40 hours at a Starbucks farm in Guatemala. Overall, in terms of its human capital, Dunkin' certainly brings more positives to the world, such as its grants to farmers, than it does negatives. In terms of seeking ethical coffee, I feel as though I don't place a significant emphasis on ensuring I'm consuming an ethical coffee. If the company is doing obviously immoral and unethical acts, I will try to avoid it. But if there are no alternatives, I will likely still consume it. I think that at a certain time, you reach a point where there are no truly 100% ethical choices, or one known unethical source will dominate the market entirely. Considering the different waves of the coffee industry, I would group Dunkin' into the second wave. Dunkin' illustrates the commodification of coffee and the different blends and flavored drinks that are all hallmarks of the second wave of coffee. Additionally, Dunkin' does have programs and initiatives to help it maintain diversity throughout the production of its coffee. Its parent company works with largely well-known organizations such as the NAACP, the Urban League, and the Equal Justice Initiative. These organizations make it their mission to ensure that the groups that have been historically marginalized no longer face that unfortunate fate in the modern era. Focusing on women, who make up 50% of Dunkin's workforce, the company conducts internal pay analyses to ensure pay equity. The company has also joined more than 100 other companies in the White House Equal Pay Pledge. The company also does not stay silent when national issues arise. A prime example of the company speaking out was following the 2020 killing of George Floyd. The company's CEO released a statement in part reading, "I believe deeply that we are better when we come together. At Dunkin' Brands, we have the ability and the responsibility to keep building unity in our own small but powerful way." The company has also been known to provide stipends to lower-income farming families in their communities. Dunkin' is very good about the positive treatment of its workers. The company seems to realize that without these workers and farmers, the supply chain would crumble. Dunkin' only sources its coffee from Rainforest Alliance certified farms, which, in part, work to protect the rights of farmers against poor working conditions, low wages, forced labor, and gender inequality. Additionally, the James Mucker Company, Dunkin's partner, periodically audits the supply chain to ensure that there are no human rights and labor violations. Finally, Dunkin', in recent years, hasn't been observed publicly busting unions like many of its competitors such as Starbucks, which often make headlines for the lengths that the organization goes to bust a union. Environmentally, Dunkin' also works to remain ethical. Dunkin' boasts that 100% of its packaging and products are recyclable where facilities exist. However, the company doesn't disclose what those facilities are or how many there are around the country. On a better note, Dunkin' has moved away from styrofoam cups, and as the company lists, this move will remove 1 billion foam cups from the annual waste stream. Dunkin' has also donated nearly $500,000 to reforestation efforts in the coffee growing regions and has funded the planting of more than 400,000 native trees. Additionally, in recent years, the company has slashed its relative greenhouse gas emissions. While the global average greenhouse gas emission rose 8.5%, Dunkin's emissions dropped by 46% in that same period. Furthermore, Dunkin's vehicle fleet accounts for more than 50% of the company's emissions, and as a result, the company has joined Fleets for Change and switched to more efficient SUVs to mitigate the greenhouse gas emissions. Culturally, Dunkin' is not very open about the cultures and traditions of the regions from which it sources its coffee. While no public, direct initiatives or promotions could be found relating to the company's respect for cultural values, it does contribute funds back into the communities to allow coffee growing to continue in these regions. Dunkin' also shows a great amount of corporate responsibility. Through its partnerships with multinational organizations like the Rainforest Alliance and World Coffee Research, Dunkin' ensures that it is bettering the environment and economic footprint in the regions that it so heavily relies on. Dunkin' has also publicly pledged to provide support to 300 coffee farming families to become more economically efficient and increase crop yields through education initiatives. These moves will work to give back to the communities that it utilizes and ensures a lasting future for the industry of coffee. Through the consumption of coffee, Americans are able to ensure that money flows back into these areas and keeps the demand for their product. In the modern age, the consumption of coffee has also been digitized quite heavily. This digitization allows for avenues of awareness on the regions where coffee is produced that might not have once been available. However, Dunkin's lack of true cultural recognition highlights a larger issue facing the industry. Coffee has shifted from a crop backed by culture and deep-rooted history to a cash crop that brings in money for foreign corporations. Coffee is now a commodity, and Dunkin's perceived inaction to safeguard the cultures does nothing to prevent further demise. Despite this, the net impact that Dunkin' provides to society, the environment, and its workers lets it remain an ethical company. The company produces a net positive for society. Through a utilitarian standpoint, it brings good to the world, and through supporting Dunkin', you would be consuming an ethical cup of coffee.